Imagine a continent so vast, so isolated, and so forbidding that it remains one of the last true frontiers on Earth. Antarctica, a place of endless ice, buried secrets, and untouched mystery. But what if the frozen land has never truly been empty? What if its silence hides not just nature, but remnants of civilizations, both ancient and modern, that dared to claim it? One of the most compelling and unsettling narratives tied to Antarctica begins with secret Nazi expeditions and the shadowy military operation that followed, Operation High Jump. In the late 1930s, Nazi Germany was not only building its war machine, but also expanding its ideological obsession with power, technology, and myths of lost civilizations. Within Hitler's inner circle, there existed a strange fascination with the occult, the supernatural, and even the possibility that humanity's origins lay in places far beyond the history books. Some of Hitler's most trusted advisors, including Heinrich Himmler, believed in ancient civilizations like Atlantis, and that remnants of such societies might be found in remote corners of the Earth. To them, these were not myths, they were potential sources of power, legitimacy, and technologies lost to time. Antarctica, with its vast unexplored landscapes, became a tempting stage for such ambitions. Historical records confirm that in 1938 and 1939, the Germans launched what they called the New Swabia expedition. A fleet led by the ship Schwabenland was sent south, with orders not just for exploration, but to stake territorial claims and search for hidden resources. Officially, their mission was to scout areas for potential whaling operations. But unofficially, rumors spread of something far stranger. Witnesses claimed that German planes dropped metallic spears marked with swastikas across sections of Antarctica, staking invisible flags over the icy wilderness. Photographs of these flights exist, fueling decades of speculation. Were the Nazis simply mapping, or were they searching for something beneath the ice? What really drew Nazi attention to Antarctica? For some researchers, it was the idea of hidden geothermal areas, pockets of warmth beneath the ice sheet where lakes and caves could exist. Scientists today know about subglacial lakes like Lake Vostok, isolated from the surface for millions of years, possibly containing microbial life unknown to us. Imagine how the discovery of such oases might have appeared to ideologically driven explorers in the 1930s. To the Nazis, who already believed in myths of ancient master races and lost continents, this would have looked like proof of their theories, a frozen gateway to prehistory or perhaps to something even stranger. Then there is the more provocative theory that the Germans discovered something they could not explain. Whispers in classified documents, speculative writings, and later conspiracy theories suggested that beneath the ice, they may have stumbled upon ruins not of human origin, but something older, alien, or incomprehensibly advanced. It is in this mix of fact, speculation, and mystery that the seeds of Antarctica's most enduring legends were planted. Fast forward less than a decade. The Second World War had ended. The Nazi regime had collapsed, but its mysteries were far from buried. In 1946, the United States launched one of the largest expeditions in Antarctic history, Operation High Jump. Officially led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, the operation involved more than 4,000 men, a fleet of ships, aircraft, and resources that seemed far beyond what was necessary for mere exploration. The stated purpose was to establish a research base, train personnel for polar conditions, and test equipment. Yet, the scale and military nature of the mission raised suspicions. Why would a war-weary world invest so heavily in sending what looked like an invasion force to the most inhospitable place on Earth? Admiral Byrd himself added fuel to the fire. After the operation, during an interview in a Chilean newspaper, he spoke cryptically of dangers in the polar regions, warning that the United States must prepare against enemies that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. What enemies could possibly fit such a description? For conspiracy theorists, this was not a slip of the tongue, but a veiled reference to something extraordinary encountered in Antarctica, perhaps remnants of advanced Nazi technology, or even encounters with entities from beneath the ice. Some theories weave these narratives together, that the Nazis had indeed discovered a hidden civilization, or even advanced alien technology beneath the ice. They may have attempted to establish a secret base, often referred to in legends as Base 211 in the Queen Maud Land region, Operation High Jump, according to these accounts, was not a research expedition, but a military confrontation, an attempt by the United States to root out remaining Nazi enclaves or seize control of whatever was hidden there. The sudden end of the mission, reportedly cut short by months, only deepens the mystery. Skeptics argue that much of this is mythology built upon exaggeration. They point out that the harsh conditions of Antarctica would have made it nearly impossible for the Nazis to build and sustain large hidden facilities. The resources required would have been staggering, and with Germany already stretched thin during the war, how could they possibly maintain such outposts? Yet, the mystery persists. And perhaps it persists not because of hard evidence, but because Antarctica is uniquely suited to foster such legends. Its isolation, its silence, and its veil of ice make it the perfect screen onto which humanity projects its deepest fears and fantasies. But let us pause and consider the implications, if even fragments of these stories are true. If Nazi expeditions really did discover geothermal oases beneath the ice, what else might have been hidden there? Could they have found ruins of civilizations lost to time, or technologies that could change the trajectory of human history? Operation High Jump's size and secrecy only magnify the possibility that more was at stake than simply planting flags and training soldiers. What was America really afraid of in those icy wastes? To understand why such stories endure, one must place them in the psychological and cultural atmosphere of their time. The mid-20th century was an era when humanity was grappling with the dawn of the nuclear age, the horrors of global war, and the sudden awareness that science could reach almost godlike power. Into this environment, Antarctica became a perfect blank canvas. Unlike Europe or Asia, where ruins and civilizations were already well documented, Antarctica was almost untouched, an unknown space where anything could be imagined. When explorers returned from missions there, often silent or vague about their experiences, the vacuum of information was quickly filled by rumor, speculation, and whispers of suppressed truths. There are documents describing that some of the German interest in Antarctica came from strange maps dating back centuries. Certain early cartographers drew outlines of Antarctic coasts with surprising accuracy, long before the continent was officially discovered. Some theorists argue that these maps suggested the ice was once thinner, or that someone, far earlier than modern history allows, had already explored the land. The Nazis, who were obsessed with rewriting history and claiming connections to ancient powers, may have viewed such maps as proof that Antarctica was not just a frozen desert, but a hidden treasure trove of forgotten knowledge. Imagine, for a moment, if an advanced human civilization had thrived in Antarctica tens of thousands of years ago, during a time when the continent's climate was warmer. Scientists know that Antarctica once had forests, rivers, and ecosystems far different from the icy world we see now. If ruins or relics from that age were preserved under ice, they would be among the most pristine and untouched remnants of prehistory. To a regime desperate for legitimacy and dominance, uncovering such ruins would be the ultimate propaganda tool, proof that they were heirs to a lost but superior race. This was not just about territory, but about rewriting the narrative of humanity itself. Operation High Jump's strange aftermath adds further layers of intrigue. Some reports suggest that planes and equipment were lost under mysterious circumstances, while others claim that Admiral Byrd cut the mission short by months. Officially, the reasons cited were harsh weather, logistical problems, and accidents. Yet, conspiracy theories insist there was more. Accounts of strange aircraft intercepting the American forces, advanced disc-shaped craft capable of speeds and maneuvers impossible for 1940s technology. Though these stories may have emerged from exaggerations or Cold War paranoia, they persist because they echo the strange words Byrd himself supposedly spoke, warnings about enemies with incredible flying abilities. The story deepens when one considers how quickly the Antarctic Treaty was signed just over a decade later, in 1959. This treaty, still in effect today, bans military activity, claims of sovereignty, and exploitation of resources on the continent. To some, this is simply a noble attempt to preserve Antarctica as a land for peace and science. But to others, it is suspicious. An international pact ensuring that whatever secrets lie under the ice remain undisturbed, hidden from public scrutiny. Why would superpowers, locked in the Cold War, suddenly agree so easily to leave a landmass untouched? Could it be that they already knew what was at stake, and that none wished to risk the exposure of something beyond human comprehension? Eyewitness testimonies, though often disputed, continue to resurface. Some ex-military personnel have hinted at encountering phenomena in Antarctica that defied explanation. Whispers of vast caverns heated by geothermal energy, tunnels large enough to hide entire bases, and lights under the ice that seem to move with intelligence. While mainstream science dismisses such stories as fabrications or distortions, they remain haunting because they fit neatly with what little we do know. Yes, Antarctica does have subglacial lakes, geothermal activity, and landscapes unlike anywhere else on Earth. If nature alone has created such strangeness, then what might a determined civilization have done with it? The idea of Nazi survivors retreating to hidden Antarctic bases has inspired countless novels, films, and theories. Some tales grow more elaborate, suggesting that these enclaves continued secret research, working with technologies beyond their time, possibly even in contact with non-human intelligences. The image of flying saucers emerging from icy caverns has become almost iconic. Though sensational, such images strike a chord because they touch upon deeper fears. That history as we know it is only a partial story, and that somewhere beneath the Antarctic ice, a forbidden chapter still waits to be uncovered. Ultimately, whether we view these accounts as myth, propaganda, or suppressed history, they serve a purpose. They force us to ask what lies beyond the limits of official records. Every great mystery endures not because it offers easy answers, but because it challenges us to imagine realities larger than the ones we accept. Antarctica, vast and inscrutable, remains the perfect setting for such imagination. It is a place where silence reigns, where secrets can sleep untouched for millennia, and where the line between history and legend blurs. Perhaps that is why the stories of Nazi expeditions and Operation High Jump continue to resonate. They remind us that there are still places on Earth that defy closure, still questions that demand to be asked, and still the tantalizing possibility that beneath the ice, the echoes of another world remain. In the age of satellites and high-resolution imaging, the Earth has been stripped of many of its mysteries. Forests are mapped, deserts are measured, and even the depths of the oceans are no longer entirely hidden. And yet, Antarctica remains one of the few places where our advanced eyes from orbit still return images that provoke more questions than answers. Among the most startling of these questions are the shapes, geometric, unnatural, and defiant, hinting that beneath the endless ice there may be structures not formed by wind or glaciers, but by human or even non-human hands. These are the so-called Antarctic pyramids. The story begins when researchers examining satellite data noticed strange triangular peaks rising through the snow. At first glance, they might be dismissed as mountains, but the geometry was too precise. The sides appeared even, the angles almost perfect, resembling pyramids more than natural ridges. In a world where pyramids appear across continents, Egypt, Mesoamerica, China, these icy shapes sparked immediate speculation. Could Antarctica hide yet another chapter of the pyramid-building civilizations? Skeptics were quick to explain them as nunataks, exposed ridges of rock protruding through ice sheets. Nunataks are common across polar landscapes, their shapes sharpened by winds and glacial erosion. But the Antarctic formations did not look random. Several appeared in alignment, echoing the kind of deliberate arrangement found in the Giza Plateau, or Teotihuacan. What if these were not simply mountains carved by nature, but the weathered remnants of an ancient architecture buried under thousands of years of ice? Consider the possibility that during the last interglacial period, Antarctica was not entirely frozen. Geological studies suggest that millions of years ago, the continent supported forests, rivers, and even animals that today live only in temperate climates. But some scientists argue that significant portions of the continent may have been ice-free as recently as tens of thousands of years ago, well within the time frame of human civilization. If that is true, then a pyramid in Antarctica is not an impossibility. It is a challenge to our assumptions about where humans have lived and what they were capable of. What makes the idea so compelling is not just the geometry, but the symbolism of pyramids themselves. Across cultures, pyramids served as more than tombs or monuments. They were conduits of power, energy, and connection to the divine. Why did ancient civilizations across the globe independently arrive at the same architectural form? Was it coincidence, or were they tapping into a deeper, perhaps universal knowledge? If Antarctica, the most isolated continent, also harbors pyramids, it would suggest that the impulse to build them was not local, but global. Satellite imagery added layers of intrigue. Images released by various mapping agencies and analyzed by independent researchers showed anomalies beneath the surface ice, massive rectangular shapes, unusual shadows, and linear ridges. Some of these seem to correspond to structures buried under 2 kilometers of ice, structures far too symmetrical to be dismissed as natural. While mainstream scientists urge caution, warning of the tricks of light, snowdrift, and erosion, the human mind is wired to recognize patterns, and what it sees are pyramids. Then came the whispers of classified scans. Insiders have claimed that certain radar and infrared surveys over Antarctica revealed heat signatures inconsistent with solid rock or ice. Instead, they hinted at hollow chambers or voids, as though beneath the ice lay vast empty spaces. Combine this with the pyramid-like shapes on the surface, and a haunting possibility emerges. What if these were not mountains at all, but the tips of colossal structures, their true bases hidden beneath miles of frozen silence? For those who believe in the existence of an ancient advanced civilization, Antarctica becomes the perfect candidate. Imagine a thriving culture existing tens of thousands of years ago, during a period when Earth's climate was far different. As the Ice Age returned, their cities were swallowed, preserved beneath glaciers. Over millennia, their memory faded, their knowledge lost, until only myths like Atlantis remained in fragmented form. The discovery of pyramids under Antarctic ice would not just be an archaeological revelation, it would be the rewriting of human history. But why pyramids? Their shape is not merely aesthetic. Engineers and physicists have long marveled at their stability and the way they interact with natural forces. The pyramid form can withstand earthquakes, erosion, and the passage of time better than almost any other design. More intriguingly, pyramids focus energy. They direct heat, light, and even electromagnetic waves in ways that are still not fully understood. Ancient peoples may have harnessed this power not only for ceremonial reasons, but for functions we have not yet rediscovered. Some researchers point to anomalies measured near known pyramids elsewhere in the world. Strange energy readings, unexplained acoustic properties, and astronomical alignments so precise they defy explanation. If Antarctica holds pyramids, could they also be aligned to stars, as those in Egypt and Central America are? Could they represent a global network of monuments constructed by a civilization with knowledge of the cosmos far exceeding what mainstream history grants? Skeptics remind us that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. And indeed, to date, no archaeological expedition has been able to excavate or confirm these Antarctic formations as artificial. The challenges are immense: temperatures that can kill in minutes, ice sheets kilometers thick, and logistical costs in the billions. Governments and research agencies prefer to focus on climate science and biology, leaving archaeology of Antarctica's secrets to the realm of speculation. And yet, in the silence of these choices, the mystery thrives. Adding to the mystery is the Antarctic Treaty, which restricts access to much of the continent. Independent expeditions face hurdles, requiring permits and approvals that are rarely granted. What better way to keep secrets buried than to wrap them in layers of law and environmental protection? Critics argue that these measures, though noble in principle, also serve to prevent anyone from stumbling upon something the world is not ready to confront. After all, a pyramid beneath the ice would rewrite history, theology, and the very narrative of human origins. One cannot ignore the psychological power of the pyramid narrative. Humanity is drawn to patterns, and the sight of symmetrical peaks in a landscape of chaos ignites our imagination. Just as clouds form shapes we recognize, ice and rock can mimic human designs. But sometimes, what looks like coincidence is not coincidence at all. History is filled with discoveries dismissed as illusions until proven otherwise. The city of Troy, the Nazca Lines, even the existence of gorillas were once considered myths. What if the Antarctic pyramids fall into this same category, waiting patiently for the moment when skepticism gives way to revelation. Imagine the excavation of such a site. Teams descending into ice caverns, drilling through frozen layers, only to find not random stone, but carved passages, walls etched with symbols, chambers resonating with a forgotten energy. The implications would shatter every assumption of human history. No longer could we claim pyramids were isolated inventions of individual cultures. Instead, they would stand as proof of a shared global inheritance, perhaps even guidance from beyond Earth itself. The isolation of Antarctica would suddenly appear less like an accident of nature and more like a deliberate vaulting of secrets, hidden until humanity was ready or desperate enough to uncover them. Consider how the idea of buried pyramids beneath Antarctica connects with the myths of lost continents. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu, all are said to have vanished under catastrophic shifts in the Earth's climate. Plato described Atlantis as a powerful civilization swallowed by the sea in a single night. If Antarctica hides pyramids, could it be the true resting place of such a legend? Some theorists argue that the timeline matches. Ancient culture spoke of floods, ice, and sudden environmental collapse. What better match than the continent smothered in frozen water, its secrets locked away by a shifting climate? Modern technology makes the question more urgent. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and satellite mapping are revealing anomalies faster than institutions can explain them. Amateur researchers share images online showing triangular formations that look anything but natural. While mainstream geologists insist these are nunataks, ordinary people see patterns too deliberate to ignore. The digital age democratizes exploration. No longer must one wait for a state-sponsored expedition. Anyone with access to satellite tools can peer into the Antarctic wilderness and draw their own conclusions. Let us also explore the psychological dimension. The pyramid is humanity's most enduring symbol. Across cultures, across millennia, it represents order imposed on chaos, spirit striving toward the heavens, and the harnessing of Earth's most basic energies. To find such symbols at the bottom of the world would be like discovering humanity's subconscious etched into ice. It would imply that our ancestors carried a shared memory, one that guided them to build pyramids wherever they roamed. Antarctica would no longer be a blank page. It would be a continuation of a story that stretches back to the dawn of consciousness. And there are whispers of more. Some claim that classified missions have already drilled into these sites, finding evidence of hollow structures. Others insist that governments conceal the discoveries, fearing the upheaval of established history. What would happen if undeniable proof emerged? If tomorrow the world awoke to images of carved stone, ancient hieroglyphs, or artifacts sealed in permafrost? Religions would reel, scientific dogmas would fracture, and humanity's place in the timeline of civilization would be rewritten in ice and stone. The significance of pyramids in Antarctica also stretches into the realm of physics. Researchers who study pyramid energy suggest that the shape itself channels Earth's magnetic field, creating zones of unusual stability. Experiments, though controversial, report that seeds stored in pyramid structures grow more quickly, that blades placed within retain sharpness, and that water exposed to pyramid geometry changes its properties. Whether science will ever confirm these claims, the symbolism is undeniable. The pyramid is not just an architectural form, but a design resonant with forces beyond human understanding. Even more provocative is the possibility that pyramids in Antarctica are not human at all. If they are discovered to be older than any known human construction, what conclusion could remain but that they were left by an intelligence predating humanity? Could they be the markers of visitors from elsewhere, or even remnants of a species that rose and fell long before us? To stand before a pyramid under the Antarctic sky would be to stand before the ultimate riddle. Who built this, and why? Critics argue that all of this is romantic imagination, that the simplest explanation, erosion in geology, should be favored until evidence proves otherwise. And yet, history has repeatedly punished those who dismiss the improbable. The ruins of Machu Picchu, the temples buried in the jungles of Cambodia, the structures at Göbekli Tepe, all were once ridiculed until excavation revealed truths stranger than speculation. The Antarctic pyramids could be the next chapter in this long tradition of discovery. The burden of proof remains immense. but so does the weight of curiosity. Looking to the future, the race for resources may one day open Antarctica in ways the treaty has so far prevented. As ice melts under global warming, hidden landscapes will emerge. Valleys, rivers, and mountains unseen for millennia will return to the light. If there are pyramids, their moment of revelation may not come through human exploration, but through nature itself, as the ice retreats and unveils what it has so carefully preserved. Perhaps this century will bear witness to the opening of the world's last vault, and in it, the revelation of the greatest secret civilization has ever known. And so, the satellite scans remain tantalizing hints. They show us shapes that seem too perfect, shadows too deliberate, alignments too uncanny. Perhaps they are tricks of the eye, natural wonders sculpted by forces indifferent to human interpretation. Or perhaps they are the frozen fingerprints of a civilization we have forgotten, waiting patiently for the day we dare to believe our ancestors walked farther, built greater, and dreamed deeper than we have ever allowed ourselves to imagine. Until then, the pyramids of Antarctica will remain not just icy peaks, but monuments of possibility, calling to us across the silence, daring us to uncover what lies beneath the frozen veil. Antarctica is often portrayed as a blank canvas of ice and silence, a place that belongs to no nation and to everyone at once. But hidden beneath its image of purity and remoteness lies a mystery that unsettles even the most rational minds. Across the years, whispers have circulated of a forbidden zone, a region within the Antarctic continent that no nation dares to cross, no expedition openly admits to exploring, and no maps fully acknowledge. It is said to be the one place in the world where the powers of governments and science meet a line they cannot cross, where access is not just discouraged, but utterly denied. Officially, Antarctica is governed by the Antarctic Treaty, a unique international agreement signed in 1959 that prohibits military activity, nuclear testing, and mineral exploitation. On the surface, the treaty seems noble, a shining example of human cooperation in preserving the last pristine wilderness. Yet, some point to the treaty as less of an environmental pact and more of a veiled restriction, a means of ensuring that whatever lies beneath the ice remains hidden. After all, why would nations that have fought bloody wars over every inch of resource-rich territory suddenly agree, almost unanimously, to protect a continent filled with potential wealth? The answer, some argue, is because they all knew there was something else there, something that could not be allowed to surface. Within the continent, there are zones cordoned off for scientific reasons, areas labeled too dangerous for travel or inaccessible due to natural hazards. Yet rumors persist that one particular area is not just restricted, but forbidden. Satellite maps, when examined closely, show anomalies, large blank spaces where data is missing, as if edited out. Some explorers claim that their GPS devices malfunctioned when nearing certain coordinates, compasses spinning wildly, instruments rendered useless. The possibility of electromagnetic interference is real, but why should such disturbances occur only in specific regions? Was nature solely responsible, or was something buried beneath the ice generating these anomalies? One of the most persistent legends places the Forbidden Zone deep within Queen Maud Land, the same region tied to the Nazi New Swabia expedition, and later whispers of secret bases. Coincidence? Or a continuation of the same enigma? If indeed there is a hidden region in Antarctica where access is denied, it would be logical for it to lie in the very place history already suggests is filled with secrets. Some accounts describe towering mountain ranges with impossibly geometric ridges, as if carved by hands not of nature, but of intelligence. If true, this would explain both the fascination and the secrecy. There are also reports, though always secondhand, that aircraft flying near certain parts of Antarctica encounter severe turbulence, electromagnetic interference, or even vanish from radar. Official explanations cite weather phenomena, sudden storms, or the dangers of magnetic anomalies near the poles. But conspiracy theorists argue otherwise, that the disturbances are not natural but artificial, the result of technology or forces emanating from beneath the ice. Could the Forbidden Zone be a perimeter, a kind of invisible barrier maintained not by governments, but by whatever exists down there? To understand why such an area might exist, one must look beyond science and into legend. Indigenous cultures around the world spoke of lands to the south, frozen realms where gods or giants were banished. Ancient maps like the predates chart show Antarctica's coastline centuries before modern discovery, some even depicting it ice-free. How could such knowledge exist without prior exploration? If civilizations of the past had indeed reached Antarctica, they may have left behind structures or archives that could change everything we believe about human history. What if the Forbidden Zone is the key to that archive, the last vault of an ancient world? Imagine for a moment that the Forbidden Zone conceals something so monumental that world powers agreed never to reveal it. Perhaps ruins of an advanced civilization older than Sumer or Egypt. Perhaps an energy source beyond anything modern technology can replicate. Perhaps even a gateway, a rift in the Earth's magnetic field, where the veil between worlds is thinner. If such a place exists, it would explain why Antarctica is shrouded not only in ice, but in silence. Silence enforced by treaties, by restrictions, by secrecy. Some researchers suggest the Forbidden Zone could be connected to the discovery of massive subglacial lakes. Lake Vostok, for example, lies under 2 miles of ice and has been sealed for millions of years. Drilling into it was halted repeatedly under mysterious circumstances, as though too much knowledge might spill out. What if there are other lakes, larger, deeper, connected in ways unknown to science? If one such body of water lies beneath the Forbidden Zone, perhaps it is not simply a geological curiosity, but a repository, holding microbial life unlike anything else, or even artifacts preserved perfectly in cold darkness. It is also important to consider the strategic implications. Antarctica is not just a frozen desert. It is a landmass larger than Europe, rich in resources locked away beneath the ice. Coal, oil, and rare minerals are believed to lie beneath its crust. In an age where nations wage shadow wars over resources, the treaty's prohibition seems strangely absolute. Why would nations that have fought bitterly for oil fields, gold mines, and rare earth metals suddenly agree that Antarctica must remain untouched? Could it be that what lies in the Forbidden Zone makes all of those resources insignificant in comparison? Accounts from alleged insiders add to the intrigue. Some claim that expeditions have been turned back by invisible barriers, extreme weather localized to single regions, or the sudden arrival of military forces enforcing silence. Pilots tell stories of being ordered to change course under penalty of losing their license, their discoveries deemed classified. Though such accounts are difficult to verify, their consistency across decades lends them a haunting weight. Are all these people lying, or is there truly something waiting beneath the veil of ice? The Forbidden Zone has also found its way into popular imagination. Books, documentaries, and even classified leaks paint it as a place of alien ruins, ancient power stations, or entrances into hollow earth. The very phrase Forbidden Zone conjures images of a land humanity is not meant to see. Psychologically, the allure is irresistible. What we cannot have becomes what we most desire. And so, the Forbidden Zone has become less of a location and more of a symbol, the one place on Earth that refuses to yield to human conquest. One cannot help but draw parallels with restricted areas elsewhere on Earth. Think of Area 51 in Nevada, a place denied to the public under the pretense of national security. For decades, governments denied its very existence, until undeniable proof forced them to acknowledge it. Yet still, the details remain secret. What if Antarctica's Forbidden Zone is a polar equivalent, hidden under the guise of environmental preservation? The same patterns of denial, partial admission, and silence appear again, suggesting that Antarctica is not just frozen wilderness, but a mirror of humanity's deepest secrets. Then there are the legends of hollow earth theories, once ridiculed, now resurfacing in strange ways. According to some accounts, entrances to vast subterranean realms exist at the poles, concealed by ice and storms. These tales claim that the Forbidden Zone could be the guardian of one such gateway, a threshold into caverns where light glows from unknown sources and ancient civilizations thrive in isolation. Though science dismisses such claims, they endure because they offer an explanation for the oddities explorers have reported: strange lights beneath the ice, echoes that sound like machines, and tunnels too regular to be natural. Geopolitical analysts raise another question. If the Forbidden Zone did not exist, Why is so much of Antarctica still off limits even to researchers? Permits are notoriously hard to obtain, surveillance is high, and independent exploration is discouraged. Some who tried to cross restricted boundaries have been detained, fined, or quietly turned back. For a land supposedly free for science, it seems curiously monitored. Why this level of control unless there is something to protect? And who exactly are these unseen authorities enforcing the silence? Speculative maps drawn from whispered testimony even suggest the forbidden zone is not small, but vast, encompassing mountain ranges and valleys where ice thickness is mysteriously reduced. Could geothermal activity have left pockets of warmth, creating oases of life? If so, such regions could harbor ecosystems unseen for millions of years, or perhaps something deliberately shielded. Imagine scientists uncovering organisms with biology so alien that our understanding of life itself shifts. Imagine finding relics of architecture preserved in permafrost, chambers carved by hands no textbook acknowledges. In the realm of myth, forbidden places always guard treasures, knowledge, power, or sacred relics. From the Garden of Eden to Shangri-La, humanity has woven stories around places that cannot be reached, where entry means transformation or destruction. The forbidden zone of Antarctica continues this archetype in the modern age. It is the last great forbidden garden, a place where knowledge waits but is withheld. Whether by gods, by governments, or by the planet itself, the barrier endures, provoking us to wonder what it protects. Consider too the strange timing of discoveries. Many explorers who claim to have seen unusual landscapes or ruins in Antarctica either died mysteriously, lost their notes, or returned silent. Admiral Byrd's cryptic comments after Operation High Jump, warning of threats that could move from pole to pole, are often linked to the forbidden zone. Was he speaking of natural hazards, or of something encountered, something that could not be openly discussed? The vagueness of such testimonies fuels the fire, a truth too heavy for words, hidden in plain sight. Looking to the future, the forbidden zone looms larger still. Climate change is melting the Antarctic ice at unprecedented rates. As glaciers retreat, valleys and mountain peaks are emerging that have been buried for tens of thousands of years. What will happen if the ice uncovers whatever the forbidden zone was meant to conceal? Will nations scramble to seize it, violating treaties in the pursuit of power? Or will new restrictions clamp down, silencing any revelations before they can spread? The 21st century may yet force the truth into the light, whether humanity is ready or not. There are those who argue the forbidden zone is not a myth, but a necessity, that some truths are too overwhelming, too destabilizing for human society. Imagine a discovery that proves humanity is not alone, or that our origins are far older and stranger than believed. Imagine technologies capable of overturning economies, religions, and governments overnight. Would it not make sense, from the perspective of global stability, to hide such knowledge beneath the ice? Perhaps the forbidden zone is not evil, but protective, a secret vault holding truths we cannot yet bear. And yet, silence cannot endure forever. The more the world connects, the more eyes peer through satellites, the harder it becomes to keep secrets. Already, images circulate online showing anomalies, massive geometric structures, inexplicable shadows, and vast blacked-out areas on digital maps. Whether these are glitches or deliberate omissions, they remind us that Antarctica is a place of unfinished stories. The forbidden zone may be the climax of that story, the moment where the known world collides with the unknown. Ultimately, the forbidden zone is not just about Antarctica. It is about the limits of human curiosity, the boundaries drawn around our desire to know. It symbolizes the eternal tension between secrecy and revelation, between the guardians of knowledge and those who seek it. Whether it hides ruins, gateways, or nothing more than dangerous terrain, it represents the last true blank spot on the map. And in that blankness, our imaginations pour their most powerful fears and hopes. Perhaps one day the ice will relent and the silence will break. Until then, the forbidden zone remains what it has always been. The last threshold of mystery, the edge of the world we know, and the gateway to a truth too vast to be spoken aloud. For centuries, maps have been humanity's way of taming the unknown. They record coastlines, they chart mountains, and they declare to future generations, this is what we knew. This is where we went. And yet, sometimes maps reveal things that should be impossible. Among the most baffling examples are the so-called ancient maps that appear to depict Antarctica, not as a frozen wasteland buried beneath 2 miles of ice, but as a living continent, complete with mountains, rivers, and an ice-free coastline. These images have haunted historians, geographers, and theorists for decades because they do not fit into the accepted story of human civilization. The most famous of these maps is the predates map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral who admitted that his sources came from much older charts. When modern scholars examined it, they were stunned to find what looked remarkably like the outline of Antarctica's northern coast. Even more bizarre, the coastline appeared ice-free, as though drawn thousands of years before glaciers covered it. Skeptics argue that the mapmaker simply distorted South America, but geologists and cartographers point to details such as bays, inlets, and mountain ranges that align suspiciously well with features buried under Antarctic ice, discovered only by radar in the 20th century. How could a 16th century admiral possess information about a continent not officially discovered until 1820, and even then, seen only as an icy shore with no visible land? The answer, according to some, lies in lost knowledge passed down from civilizations far older than we dare imagine. Perhaps ancient seafarers had circumnavigated the globe, mapping lands long before modern history records such voyages. Others take it further, suggesting that the maps are fragments of Atlantean archives, pieces of a once great civilization destroyed by cataclysm, leaving only faint echoes in cartographic records. The predates map is not alone. The Orontes Finaeus map of 1531 shows a surprisingly accurate Antarctic coastline, again ice-free, with mountain ranges placed where radar and satellite surveys in the 20th century later confirmed their existence. Mercator and Bosch maps also hint at southern landmasses with rivers and bays no one could have charted without seeing the land beneath the ice. Taken together, they suggest a pattern, knowledge of an ice-free Antarctica existing somehow, somewhere, and preserved until it slipped into European map-making. Science complicates the puzzle. Core samples and climate models reveal that Antarctica has not been ice-free for millions of years. Yet, some studies propose that parts of the coast may have been relatively ice-free as recently as 6,000 to 12,000 years ago, well within the window of human civilization. If people at that time had advanced navigation and recording skills, could they have reached Antarctica? Could they have mapped it before it was swallowed by ice, leaving us only fragments of their knowledge copied centuries later? Skeptics argue that the maps are misreadings. They claim that humans simply drew imaginative southern continents to balance the globe, a common practice in early cartography. Yet, the precision of the coastlines and the uncanny placement of mountain ranges are difficult to dismiss. If it were imagination, why do the features align with modern discoveries invisible to explorers of the 1500s? Why do rivers flow on the maps where subglacial valleys actually exist? Too much coincidence begins to feel like evidence, even when wrapped in layers of denial. Imagine what this would mean if true. Civilizations before recorded history capable of global navigation, mapping, and record-keeping, sophisticated enough to pass knowledge down across millennia. The pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica already prove that ancient peoples achieved feats modern engineers struggle to replicate. The maps of Antarctica may be the cartographic equivalent, remnants of a forgotten golden age, glimpsed in fragments, but never fully understood. If these maps are accurate, they would confirm that the story of humanity is far older and far more complex than the textbooks admit. The implications ripple outward. Why has such knowledge remained buried in archives, treated as curiosities rather than revelations? Some say the Antarctic Treaty and the sheer difficulty of access keep these mysteries out of reach. Others suggest that those in power know the maps point to ruins beneath the ice, ruins that would rewrite the story of humanity. If tomorrow we uncovered a temple or city beneath Antarctic glaciers, the ancient maps would no longer be anomalies. They would be proof that our past is not a straight line, but a shattered mosaic. When we place these mysterious maps into the broader history of exploration, the strangeness becomes even sharper. Early European maps often contained fanciful beasts and imagined continents, but they rarely contained precise coastlines that would later prove accurate. The presence of Antarctica's shape on maps, created centuries before its documented discovery, stands out like an ink stain on the narrative of human progress. It suggests that someone, at some point in deep antiquity, had far more knowledge of the planet than history acknowledges. The Bosch map of 1737, for instance, does not simply show an Antarctic continent, but depicts it divided into two major landmasses separated by a sea. At the time, this was dismissed as invention, a cartographer's attempt to balance theories of Earth's geography. Yet, modern surveys beneath the ice reveal that Antarctica is indeed composed of two main regions, East and West Antarctica, separated by a vast subglacial rift system. How could an 18th century mapmaker have guessed such detail without access to modern instruments? The precision is uncanny, and the coincidence once again difficult to wave away. Supporters of the ancient knowledge theory argue that these maps are echoes of a global seafaring culture that existed long before the rise of Mesopotamia or Egypt. They may have mapped the world when climate conditions were vastly different, preserving fragments of that knowledge until later mapmakers copied them without fully understanding their origin. If so, Antarctica is not a blank land waiting for discovery, but a lost homeland remembered only in lines of ink. The maps become artifacts of memory, passed through hands and centuries, their true meaning forgotten. Skeptics remain firm. They argue that confirmation bias drives the fascination, that people see what they want to see in these maps, imposing Antarctica's outline where none exists. They point out that coastlines could be exaggerated drawings of South America, or that ice-free interpretations are misreadings of artistic flourishes, but the counter-question remains. If the maps are simply flawed, why do they contain details that align with modern surveys made possible only with radar and satellites? At what point does coincidence cross the line into evidence? Some suggest a middle ground. Perhaps ancient traders reached farther than we think, recording coasts partially and imperfectly, and their records became distorted through centuries of copying. This explanation removes Atlantis and lost civilizations, but still acknowledges that human exploration may have extended into regions long dismissed as unreachable. It paints our ancestors not as primitive wanderers, but as daring navigators who dared to sail into the unknown, leaving behind glimpses of a world we are only now rediscovering. There is also a symbolic layer to these maps. They remind us that knowledge is fragile, that civilizations rise and fall, and with them entire libraries vanish. What remains are fragments, half understood and often dismissed. The ancient maps of Antarctica may be such fragments, voices from a forgotten past, echoing faintly into our age. Whether they point to literal truth or symbolic myth, they challenge the arrogance of assuming that we, in the modern era, are the first to understand the planet fully. The question then becomes, what are we missing today? Just as ancient maps hid Antarctica's mysteries in plain sight, are there modern datasets, satellite scans, or restricted archives concealing truths too strange for mainstream acceptance? If Antarctica does indeed hide ruins, cities, or records of an advanced age, perhaps the maps were never meant as proof, but as warnings. They tell us, we have been here before, we have seen what lies beneath, and we have left our marks for you to rediscover. And so, the ancient maps remain as silent witnesses, fragments of a story that has yet to be told. Whether they are distortions, coincidences, or genuine relics of a lost civilization, their presence unsettles the neat boundaries of our history. They suggest that beneath the Antarctic ice may lie not just stone and snow, but memory. The memory of an Earth once known in ways we no longer understand. Until the ice gives up its secrets, the maps will remain as tantalizing clues, daring us to wonder how much we have forgotten, and how much still waits, hidden at the bottom of the world. Across the ancient world, whispers tell of a land beyond the reach of ordinary mortals, a realm of perpetual light, untouched by winter, hidden in the farthest reaches of the north, and sometimes described as lying within the earth itself. The Greeks called it Hyperborea, a paradise where the sun never set, and a race of people lived in harmony with nature, free of disease, aging, and death. Other cultures spoke of hollow lands beneath mountains, caverns stretching beneath continents, and subterranean kingdoms that thrived in secrecy. When woven together, these myths form a haunting suggestion. Perhaps the world we know is only the surface of a deeper truth, and Antarctica itself may guard the entrance. To the ancient Greeks, Hyperborea was not just myth, but geography. Poets and philosophers placed it beyond the north wind, in a region that ordinary sailors could never reach. They described a race of tall, radiant beings who lived in peace, worshipping gods in ways long forgotten by the rest of humanity. Their lives were said to last 1,000 years, their society untouched by war or hunger. Herodotus, Pindar, and others wrote of them with a strange mixture of reverence and distance, as though describing something remembered, but no longer accessible. To the Greeks, Hyperborea symbolized purity, wisdom, and a life unspoiled by the corruption of ordinary men. But what if these legends were not simply symbolic, but distorted memories of real places and real peoples? Imagine a time in prehistory when climates were different, when the polar regions were not covered in ice, but instead lush and fertile. We know from science that Antarctica once supported forests, and that the Arctic regions too were warmer. Could Hyperborea have been a memory of such lands? A fragment of human history passed down through stories that later became myth? If so, then perhaps the realms described as eternal daylight or hollow kingdoms are echoes of real encounters, now buried beneath miles of ice. The idea of hollow lands deepens the enigma. From Siberia to Tibet, legends speak of vast caverns beneath mountains, where advanced races or hidden kingdoms thrive. The Buddhist concept of Shambhala describes a sacred realm concealed within the earth, a place where enlightened beings protect ancient wisdom. In Europe, medieval chronicles whispered of Agartha, a subterranean empire connected by tunnels stretching across continents. These stories, though separated by geography and culture, share a common theme: the idea that beneath our feet lies another world, waiting, hidden, perhaps superior. When explorers ventured into the poles in the modern age, they carried these myths with them, consciously or not. Reports of strange phenomena at the poles, compasses spinning wildly, lights dancing beneath the horizon, and the aurora itself, fed into the belief that entrances to hollow lands might exist there. Some claimed that vast openings at the poles led not to barren ice, but to inner worlds warmed by hidden suns, sustaining civilizations unknown to the surface. Though modern science rejects the concept of hollow Earth, the persistence of these myths and the passion with which people defend them speaks to something deeper than mere fantasy. Hyperborea became more than a Greek dream. It transformed into a symbol woven through esoteric traditions, secret societies, and even political ideologies. For some occult groups in the 19th and 20th centuries, Hyperborea was not merely paradise, but the cradle of humanity itself, a place where the first great civilizations rose before spreading across the world. They believed that fragments of its wisdom linger in myths, in pyramids, and perhaps in the very DNA of humanity. To them, Hyperborea was not lost, but hidden, awaiting rediscovery by those worthy to seek it. What is striking is how these myths intersect with Antarctica. The Greeks spoke of Hyperborea as a northern paradise, yet later traditions often confuse north and south, associating polar extremes with hidden lands. When Antarctica was discovered, some saw it not as a frozen desert, but as a possible southern Hyperborea sealed away by ice. The hollow Earth theories gained traction here as well, suggesting that beneath Antarctica's crust lies a network of tunnels and chambers leading to Agartha or other hidden realms. Some even claim that the so-called forbidden zones of Antarctica are not natural dangers, but enforced perimeters, guarding the entrances to such worlds. Consider how the Greeks placed Hyperborea at the edge of their known world. To them, it was not simply imagination, but a necessary completion of geography. The world had to balance itself. And so, beyond the northern winds, there had to be a land of harmony, just as deserts and oceans balance the Mediterranean. The Hyperboreans were described as children of Apollo, the god of light, and their land was drenched in sunlight. This imagery has profound echoes in modern interpretations of the polar regions, where half the year truly is bathed in perpetual day. Could myth and science have intersected here? Memories of real journeys woven into poetic exaggeration? The hollow Earth stories add another layer. The 17th and 18th centuries produced theories from scientists like Edmund Halley, who speculated that the Earth might be composed of concentric shells, with inner worlds illuminated by hidden light. Later, Writers like Jules Verne popularized the idea, embedding it into the cultural imagination. By the 20th century, figures such as Admiral Byrd became entangled in tales of journeys to inner realms during polar expeditions. Though mainstream history treats these as exaggerations or misinterpretations, the stories resonate because they feel like echoes of something ancient carried into the modern world. Esoteric traditions seized upon these myths with fervor. Secret societies in Europe and later theosophical movements claimed that Hyperborea was not just a place, but the origin of an ancient race of superior wisdom. Some extremists in the early 20th century twisted these myths into dangerous ideologies, suggesting that their chosen people were descendants of Hyperborean ancestors. Yet, even stripped of politics, the myth retains its allure, the idea that humanity has forgotten its birthplace, that our current civilizations are but shadows of a greater world lost to time. Modern conspiracy theories blend these threads. They argue that governments know more than they admit about polar anomalies, pointing to restricted zones, missing satellite data, and scientific expeditions that return silent. Whispers speak of vast caverns warmed by geothermal energy beneath Antarctica, caverns large enough to sustain life. If such places exist, they could explain why myths of inner lands and Hyperborean paradises endure. Perhaps they were not fictions, but distorted memories of encounters with hidden geographies. Science, while dismissing Hollow Earth as pseudoscience, continues to uncover discoveries that make the myths harder to ignore. Radar surveys reveal massive voids beneath Antarctica, so large that their formation defies easy explanation. Geologists have found unexplained heat sources under the ice, creating melting zones and vast lakes sealed for millions of years. Biologists speculate that isolated ecosystems in such lakes could harbor organisms utterly unique. To believers, these facts are the raw material of legend, scientific confirmation that strange realms do exist beneath the ice. The symbolic power of Hyperborea is undeniable. It embodies the human need for a lost paradise, a homeland untouched by corruption. In myth, the Hyperboreans live without war, disease, or suffering, their lives in harmony with cosmic order. In Hollow Earth lore, subterranean civilizations are often described as enlightened, possessing technologies or wisdom far beyond ours. These stories serve not just as fantasies, but as critiques of our own world, reminders that humanity senses it has fallen from something greater. They are not only about what might exist beneath the earth, but about what we have lost above it. Now, imagine if tomorrow evidence emerged, an entrance discovered in Antarctica, a cavern leading to a warm inner valley, ruins of a forgotten culture, or even living beings untouched by our history. The discovery would not just rewrite science, it would destabilize every foundation of belief. Religions would be forced to reconcile with beings that lived apart from biblical history. Science would be challenged to explain how such civilizations survived. Governments would scramble to control the narrative, fearing the collapse of systems built upon the illusion that humanity already knows its origin and place. Perhaps that is why these myths persist. They are too powerful to ignore, too disruptive to accept, and so they linger at the edges of credibility. They are told and retold in whispers, encoded in maps, echoed in art, and hinted at in exploration accounts. Hyperborea, Agartha, Shambhala. They may be names for the same memory, filtered through culture and time, a memory that humanity cannot forget, but also cannot fully accept, because to do so would mean admitting that our story is not complete, that our history is missing its greatest chapter. And so, the legends remain. In the silence of Antarctica's ice, in the auroras flickering over the poles, in the caves that plunge into shadow, humanity senses the presence of another world. Whether Hyperborea was real, whether hollow lands exist, whether these myths point to truths or only dreams, they continue to exert their power. They remind us that we are explorers not only of the Earth, but of our own forgotten past. Until the ice yields its secrets, the legends of Hyperborea and the hollow lands will remain the most haunting of all mysteries, the echo of a world that might so. Beneath the endless ice of Antarctica lies a mystery that challenges not only our science, but our imagination. Though the surface is frozen, with temperatures so brutal that human skin freezes in minutes, evidence reveals that deep below, heat stirs. Strange warmth rises from the crust, melting ice from within, creating vast hidden lakes and caverns where liquid water has endured for millions of years. Scientists explain it through geothermal activity, volcanoes buried beneath ice, and the restless energy of Earth's mantle. Yet, others whisper of something far more unsettling: ancient underground heating systems left behind by a forgotten civilization or perhaps by forces beyond human history. Geothermal activity beneath Antarctica is no secret. Satellite surveys have revealed hotspots where the ice thins unexpectedly, where lakes such as Vostok, Mercer, and Whillans remain liquid despite being sealed under miles of ice. Beneath Marie Byrd Land, instruments have detected heat flow levels comparable to Yellowstone's volcanic system. In some regions, radar shows great voids forming, as though massive plumes of heat are pushing upward, eating the ice away from below. These discoveries alone are extraordinary. They tell us that Antarctica is not as silent as it seems, but alive with fire beneath its frozen surface. Yet, for others, the heat beneath Antarctica is more than geology. It is technology. Conspiracy theorists argue that what scientists call geothermal hotspots are in fact remnants of ancient underground heating systems. Perhaps, they suggest, a lost civilization built structures powered by unknown energy sources, designed to maintain habitable environments beneath the ice. If humanity today struggles to survive even in the most advanced polar bases, how could ancient people thrive there without such support? The answer, they say, lies in forgotten engineering, massive heating networks buried deep, still functioning in silence. Theories expand further. Some suggest these heating systems were not built by humans at all, but by a race predating us, or by visitors from beyond Earth. The idea sounds outrageous, yet the persistence of perfectly aligned pyramids, anomalous maps, and rumors of forbidden zones fuels speculation. If underground heating systems existed, they would explain how entire civilizations might have flourished beneath the ice, hidden from history, and why governments today guard Antarctica with an unusual intensity. Even within mainstream science, questions abound. Why do certain lakes remain so warm, far beyond what simple geothermal activity should allow? Why do magnetic anomalies cluster around specific regions, as though vast energy sources were buried beneath? And why, despite decades of research, do we know so little about Antarctica's interior, with most surveys confined to a handful of regions, while others remain conspicuously off-limits? These questions do not require belief in hidden civilizations to feel troubling. They suggest that something extraordinary is occurring beneath the ice, whether natural or artificial. Supporters of the ancient heating theory point to myths across cultures, legends of underground cities, halls warmed by eternal fires, or realms beneath mountains lit by strange light appear from Tibet to South America. In Norse mythology, fire and ice collide at the dawn of creation. In Hindu tradition, subterranean realms known as Patala were inhabited by serpent beings and illuminated by jewels. Could these myths be distorted memories of real technologies? Heating systems so advanced they seem like magic. The scientific discoveries themselves feed the fire. In 2018, NASA satellites recorded massive heat anomalies beneath the West Antarctic ice sheet, producing meltwater lakes that defied known processes. Some researchers admitted the heat sources could not be explained entirely by volcanic activity. The plumes seemed concentrated, targeted, as though designed rather than random. Such findings echo the very idea of systems placed intentionally to sustain warmth where none should exist. Imagine vast caverns maintained by channels of geothermal energy, rivers flowing in darkness, ecosystems surviving in hidden sanctuaries. It is not difficult to see how ancient engineers, or unknown forces, could have shaped Antarctica into something far different than we believe. The presence of subglacial lakes like Vostok adds weight to speculation. Sealed under ice for millions of years, Lake Vostok is larger than Lake Ontario, and its waters are warmed from below. When Russian scientists drilled toward it, operations halted mysteriously, with rumors of classified discoveries, strange microbes, and pressure to stop further penetration. If heating systems exist, they could explain how such lakes remain liquid and untouched, preserving secrets far older than human civilization. They may even preserve ruins or artifacts sealed away in stable environments, hidden by ice but protected by warmth. Some take the theory further, suggesting that underground heating systems are not merely passive but active, still functioning today. They argue that unexplained glacial melts, sudden collapses of ice shelves, and mysterious temperature spikes are not just climate change, but signs of hidden technology stirring beneath. If true, then Antarctica is not simply melting, it is awakening. The ancient systems might be reactivating, or being used by forces unknown to us. Skeptics respond with caution. They remind us that Antarctica is immense, that its geology is poorly mapped, and that volcanic systems beneath ice can produce anomalies without requiring conspiracy. Yet the secrecy surrounding research cannot be ignored. Why are so many results withheld, redacted, or published only in fragments? Why do expeditions often end with silence, their data locked away in classified archives? Skeptics may explain the heat, but they struggle to explain the silence. To grasp the scale of what underground heating could mean, we must first consider Antarctica's geology. The continent sits atop the Pacific Ring of Fire, a vast belt of seismic and volcanic activity encircling the ocean. Though much of Antarctica seems still, its crust conceals dozens of volcanoes, some dormant, others active beneath kilometers of ice. Mount Erebus, near Ross Island, is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth, its lava lake churning ceaselessly even as the surrounding landscape lies frozen. This proves that Antarctica's silence is deceptive. It is a land of fire as much as ice. Yet, this natural explanation does not answer all anomalies. Satellite data often reveals heat signatures that are not aligned with the known volcanic structures. Some appear isolated, concentrated beneath flat plains where no volcanoes should exist. Critics suggest instrument errors, but others see evidence of precision, as though heat were being generated and directed, not randomly emitted. Could this be the footprint of engineering on a scale almost unimaginable? If a civilization had mastered geoenergetic control, it would leave behind exactly such signatures. Warmth where no warmth should be. Ancient myths echo this idea in ways difficult to ignore. Consider the Greek titan Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gifted it to humanity, hidden within the earth. Or the Zoroastrian traditions of sacred flames that never extinguish, flames said to rise from the ground itself. Indigenous tales from the Andes describe underworld halls of fire where spirits dwell, while Norse creation myths speak of Muspelheim, the fiery realm beneath. Though symbolic, such stories may preserve cultural memories of real encounters with the strange warmth of the earth. Warmth that in Antarctica may have been harnessed, not feared. In speculative engineering, the concept of geothermal manipulation is not fantasy. Modern scientists already discuss the possibility of harnessing volcanic heat for limitless energy. Iceland powers much of its society through geothermal plants, drawing directly from the Earth's inner warmth. Scale that idea upward. Imagine structures buried under Antarctica that channeled volcanic energy to warm entire valleys or sustain underground cities. And suddenly the myth of advanced heating systems does not seem so impossible. Some suggest the fabled Atlantis may have mastered such power. Their civilization destroyed when underground systems backfired or became unstable. Others claim visitors from the stars could have installed heat generators to terraform Antarctica long before humans. While such theories lack proof, they provide frameworks for understanding how advanced beings, whether human or not, could make a frozen wasteland habitable. The engineering challenge is vast, but so are the anomalies waiting beneath the ice. The secrecy surrounding research intensifies speculation. In the late 20th century, reports surfaced of expeditions discovering geothermal vents far larger than expected, yet publications on them were sparse, details redacted, or results retracted. Why such caution if the phenomena were purely natural? Was it fear of destabilizing climate debates, or fear of hinting at something impossible to explain? The absence of clarity only fuels the idea that underground heating systems are real, but hidden. Looking to the future, the idea becomes even more urgent. As climate change accelerates, Antarctica's ice retreats, revealing land that has not seen daylight for millions of years. If underground heating systems exist, they will become exposed, their functions clearer. Perhaps we will find vast caverns filled with warm air, microbial life that defies biology, or even ruins perfectly preserved in temperate pockets. The 21st century may be the moment when myths of underground heat become direct observations. Philosophically, the notion of underground heating systems also resonates with the idea of hidden knowledge. Fire has always symbolized enlightenment, illumination, the uncovering of truth. To imagine fire beneath ice is to imagine hidden wisdom beneath ignorance, a metaphor for the human journey itself. Theories of heating systems, whether natural or artificial, suggest that beneath the cold surface of accepted history burns the warmth of forgotten truth, waiting to melt its way into view. In the end, what matters is not whether every rumor is true, but that the anomalies exist, stubborn and unexplained. Heat where no heat should be, water where no water should survive, secrecy where transparency should reign. Together they point to one undeniable fact. Antarctica is not silent. It breathes, it stirs, it conceals. Whether through geology, technology, or ancient design, warmth persists beneath its frozen shell. And until we face what that warmth hides, the theories of underground heating systems will remain alive, reminding us that the last great mystery on Earth may not be the ice above, but the fire below. Antarctica is often called the last frontier of Earth, a frozen desert so hostile that only the hardiest researchers dare to venture there. Yet, behind the image of scientific cooperation and international treaties lies a darker narrative, one of secrecy, missing teams, and military operations cloaked in silence. The public sees Antarctica as a land of penguins and icebergs, but for decades it has been a stage for stories of classified missions, unexplained disappearances, and discoveries too disruptive to reveal. In the wake of the Second World War, the United States launched Operation High Jump in 1946, an expedition that included thousands of personnel, ships, and aircraft. Officially, it was about training and testing, but many believe it was a military maneuver to confront remnants of Nazi forces rumored to be hiding in Antarctica. The mission was abruptly cut short, months earlier than planned. While official accounts cite accidents and extreme conditions, Admiral Byrd's cryptic remarks about aerial enemies with capabilities beyond imagination gave rise to decades of speculation. If High Jump encountered something unexpected, it may have been the beginning of Antarctica's silence. Through the decades, whispers of secrecy only grew. Researchers in Antarctica often report gaps in their communication, data that is collected but never released, and entire expeditions whose results vanish into classified archives. In some cases, scientific teams have gone missing, their stories shrouded in vague explanations of storms or accidents. Such explanations might satisfy official reports, but to those who follow the patterns, they feel like rehearsed covers, repeated too often to be believed. Each missing team adds to a ledger of secrecy, a record of unanswered questions. One of the most chilling aspects of Antarctica's mystery is the pattern of restricted zones. The Antarctic Treaty claims to preserve the continent for science, but it also divides the land into sectors, many of which are inaccessible without military approval. Independent explorers who stray into these areas report being turned back by armed patrols or warned to stay away. Some accounts speak of flights diverted under military order, their pilots told they had strayed into airspace where they did not belong. For a land meant to be neutral and open, Antarctica feels strangely guarded. Disappearances feed the mystery further. In the 1960s and 70s, several research teams were reportedly lost in whiteouts, their bodies never recovered, their equipment vanishing as though swallowed by the ice. Some were blamed on crevasses or storms, yet rumors suggest that certain expeditions had been investigating anomalies before they vanished. Magnetic disturbances, unusual heat sources, or structures glimpsed from the air. To skeptics, these are tragic accidents. To believers, they are proof that someone or something ensures such discoveries never see the light of day. Military secrecy is not confined to one nation. The Russians, Americans, British, and even private corporations have all been accused of withholding discoveries. When Russian scientists drilled into Lake Vostok, one of the most mysterious subglacial lakes on Earth, reports suggest that they were pressured to stop, their findings never fully disclosed. Some say they discovered microbial life. Others insist they found something much larger, perhaps even artificial. Whatever the truth, the research abruptly fell silent. The idea of missing teams resonates because it fits into a larger pattern of unexplained vanishings. Aircraft flying over Antarctica have gone off radar, their wreckage never found. Satellite images occasionally show anomalies that later vanish from public access. In one case, high-resolution images of a strange geometric structure disappeared from online databases within days of being noticed. Such incidents, repeated over decades, give weight to the suspicion that Antarctica holds something too significant to be allowed into the open. Why would militaries hide discoveries? Some argue it is simply about resources. Antarctica is believed to hold vast quantities of coal, oil, and rare minerals. Control of these would shift global power. Others believe the secrecy goes far deeper, that ruins, technologies, or even unknown life forms exist beneath the ice, and their revelation would destabilize the world. For governments, it may not be about possession, but containment, keeping truths locked away until humanity is ready, or forever. Consider the Cold War era, when Antarctica became not just a scientific frontier, but a stage for silent competition. Both the United States and the Soviet Union expanded their presence, building bases, sending fleets, and conducting experiments. Officially, these were scientific programs, but many documents remained classified, leaving suspicions that the ice was a cover for testing advanced technologies. It is telling that both superpowers, locked in bitter rivalry elsewhere, agreed to cooperate in secrecy here. Antarctica became a chessboard where moves were made, but pieces were hidden. Rumors of missing research teams intensified in the 1980s and 90s. In some cases, field camps were found abandoned, equipment intact, but researchers gone without trace. While authorities blamed disorientation, cold, or accidents, the strangeness lingered. Why were their logs missing? Why were communications cut suddenly as though silenced rather than disrupted by weather? Every disappearance in a hostile land can be explained. Yet, when explanations repeat too neatly, doubt grows. Accounts from whistleblowers add further unease. A handful of former military personnel claim to have been stationed in Antarctica only to witness phenomena that never made it into reports. Strange lights, craft emerging from beneath the ice, and facilities hidden beneath mountains. Their testimonies remain controversial, but the consistency across decades is unsettling. Independent voices echo the same themes: secrecy, disappearance, and knowledge too dangerous to share. The issue of missing data is perhaps more troubling than missing people. Satellite surveys detect anomalies, but their images vanish from public archives. Reports are published, then quietly withdrawn. International researchers complain of being pressured not to pursue certain lines of investigation. The phrase national security is invoked even in contexts where no military threat exists. Why should ice, mountains, or lakes be treated as classified secrets? Unless what lies there has implications far beyond geology. Speculation about military involvement inevitably circles back to technology. Some claim that under the ice, ruins of advanced machinery, or even vehicles, have been found. If true, this would explain why secrecy is paramount. Imagine discovering a craft capable of breaking the laws of physics as we know them. No government would allow such knowledge to spread freely. Instead, it would be locked away, studied in hidden facilities, and its very existence denied. Antarctica, remote and inaccessible, is the perfect vault for such secrets. Eyewitnesses describe strange encounters that official narratives cannot explain. Pilots have reported seeing glowing orbs moving beneath the ice, lights that seem to travel along straight paths like tunnels. Climbers and explorers speak of vibrations beneath their feet, as though machines were running deep below. Some claim to have seen vast openings in mountainsides, their entrances guarded or later covered by avalanches that seemed suspiciously timed. Each account could be dismissed as mistake or fantasy, yet the accumulation builds pressure. Military secrecy also explains why so much of Antarctica remains unsurveyed. Despite advances in satellite imaging, much of the continent's interior is still poorly mapped. Vast regions are labeled as data gaps. Entire valleys remain unphotographed at high resolution. In a world where we can map the surface of Mars in detail, why should Earth's last frontier remain such a blank? Perhaps it is not inability, but intention. Perhaps the gaps are not errors, but edits, ensuring that the most revealing regions stay hidden. What if the missing research teams are not lost, but silenced? Some theorists argue that scientists who discovered too much were removed, their fates hidden behind accidents. Others suggest that entire teams may have been recruited into classified programs, continuing their work in secrecy. Antarctica, with its isolation, provides the perfect veil. A disappearance there leaves few questions and even fewer answers. Families grieve, official reports explain, but the truth remains buried with the ice. The pattern of secrecy aligns with the archetype of forbidden knowledge. Humanity has always guarded truths considered too disruptive, from suppressed scriptures to censored discoveries. Antarctica may be the modern equivalent, a vault where the deepest secrets of Earth are kept under the watch of military powers. The disappearances, the missing data, the silenced teams, these are the symptoms of a disease called secrecy, one that thrives in the cold because the cold hides everything. And yet, secrecy cannot endure forever. As ice melts and satellites sharpen their gaze, what is hidden becomes harder to suppress. Already hints slip through. Anomalous images, strange reports, whispers from those who have seen more than they should. Looking to the future, the mystery only deepens. Climate change melts Antarctica's edges, exposing terrain unseen for millions of years. What will happen if melting reveals ruins, artifacts, or technology too large to hide? Will militaries tighten their grip, restricting access even more? Or will revelations slip through before they can be controlled? Perhaps the missing research teams were simply early witnesses to what the rest of the world has not yet seen. Perhaps they stumbled into truths that we are not yet ready to face. In the end, the story of military secrecy and missing research teams in Antarctica is not about isolated incidents, but about a pattern of silence, disappearance, and concealment that stretches across decades and nations. It is the story of humanity's last frontier, not as a land of discovery, but as a vault of withheld truth. Whether the missing were victims of nature or of knowledge too dangerous to reveal, the result is the same. Antarctica keeps its secrets, and those who go seeking them risk joining the silence. Antarctica, the most remote continent on Earth, is a place of silence, extremes, and secrets. Its endless white stretches conceal mountains, valleys, and caverns buried under miles of ice. For decades, scientists have uncovered anomalies there, magnetic disturbances, mysterious heat sources, and geometric shapes glimpsed on satellite scans. But beyond science, a more unsettling narrative has emerged. Whispers of bases not built by human hands, structures hidden deep beneath the ice, and the rumor that Antarctica is home to alien installations. The origins of this rumor trace back to the years following the Second World War. Operation High Jump in 1946 remains a touchstone, not just for historians, but for conspiracy theorists who believe Admiral Byrd's fleet encountered more than storms and ice. His cryptic warnings about enemies with the ability to fly pole to pole ignited speculation that advanced craft, not of earthly origin, had been seen over Antarctica. If alien forces had established bases, Antarctica's isolation and brutal climate would make it the perfect refuge. Rumors grew stronger with the Cold War. Both the United States and the Soviet Union invested heavily in Antarctic exploration, yet much of their research was cloaked in secrecy. Why, many ask, would superpowers struggling for dominance elsewhere suddenly cooperate under the Antarctic Treaty? Was it truly about preserving the environment? Or was it a pact of silence, a global decision to keep hidden the discovery of something too disruptive for humanity to confront? Some argue the treaty was not about peace, but about containment. The shape of the alien base theories varies, but their core is the same. Beneath the ice are vast structures, either natural caverns converted into installations, or artificial complexes carved with technology far beyond ours. Whistleblowers speak of hangars the size of cities, hidden beneath glaciers, where craft can emerge through openings that appear and disappear with the shifting ice. Pilots report seeing circular depressions in snowfields, perfectly geometric, as though something beneath had risen and pressed against the ice before withdrawing. Supporters of these theories point to the strange magnetic anomalies measured across Antarctica. Compasses spin erratically in certain regions. Satellites record signals rising from beneath the ice, signals with no natural explanation. In the late 20th century, reports surfaced of radio bursts from beneath the continent, dismissed officially as atmospheric interference. Yet, to those who believe in hidden bases, they were communications, transmissions from civilizations concealed below. The case of Lake Vostok adds fuel to this fire. Buried under more than 2 miles of ice, its waters remain liquid, warmed from below. When Russian scientists drilled toward it, rumors spread that they encountered more than microbial life. Some whispered that strange metallic objects were detected, others that a structure had been glimpsed beneath the lake's surface. The drilling stopped, and the findings remain classified. To believers, Lake Vostok is not just a natural wonder, but the roof of something immense and artificial. Stories of alien bases also intertwine with accounts of missing expeditions and lost aircraft. Several military flights in the 1950s and 60s reported UFOs near Antarctica, their encounters later classified. Researchers who claimed to have found strange artifacts or ruins reportedly vanished, their work silenced. The pattern echoes throughout the lore of Antarctica. Discovery, disappearance, denial. If alien bases do exist, then it would make sense that secrecy surrounds them, for their exposure would unravel the carefully controlled narratives of human history. Why Antarctica? Theories abound. Its remoteness makes it the perfect hiding place, a land where human presence is limited, where few eyes can witness what occurs. The ice itself is a shield, kilometers thick, masking anything beneath from ordinary detection. Some suggest that aliens chose Antarctica long ago, when it was warm and fertile, establishing colonies that were later entombed as ice advanced. Others argue the bases are recent, constructed after humanity began splitting the atom, as a way to observe and monitor our development. Skeptics argue that all of this is a fantasy, a patchwork of misinterpreted data, hoaxes, and wishful thinking. They point out that Antarctica is vast, largely unexplored, and full of natural anomalies that can mimic artificial structures. Yet, the persistence of the rumors is striking. Decade after decade, independent explorers, military personnel, and even scientists hint at discoveries that vanish from official records. The consistency suggests not random imagination, but a thread of hidden truth. Connections between Antarctica and alien presence often circle back to the Nazi expeditions of the 1930s. Legends claim that German explorers discovered vast caverns beneath the ice and established contact with non-human intelligences. The story insists that advanced flying discs, later reported as Nazi Wunderwaffe, were inspired by alien collaboration. Whether myth or disinformation, these tales link human history to extraterrestrial bases beneath Antarctica, suggesting that the frozen continent has long been more than just ice and stone. During the Cold War, both superpowers reportedly tracked unidentified craft near Antarctica. Declassified documents from the era confirm that UFO sightings spiked in polar regions, with objects traveling at impossible speeds, changing direction abruptly, and vanishing into the horizon. Some reports describe these objects diving directly into the ocean or disappearing toward the ice fields, behavior consistent with hidden bases. Naval forces conducted exercises in southern waters, their true motives unknown, their files redacted. Scientific anomalies fuel the mystery further. In 2006, satellites recorded a massive gravitational anomaly beneath Wilkes Land, a feature so large it defies simple explanation. Some scientists suggest it could be the remains of an asteroid impact. Others speculate it might conceal a colossal artificial structure. To believers, it is the clearest evidence of something built beneath the ice, something vast enough to distort the planet's gravity. When combined with accounts of geometric mountain ranges and radar voids, the suggestion of alien bases feels less like speculation and more like possibility. Speculation also considers why alien civilizations might choose Antarctica. Its isolation ensures minimal interference from humans. Its thick ice provides natural protection, a shield against detection and meteor impacts. Some suggest aliens use the continent as a monitoring post, observing humanity while remaining unseen. Others argue it is a fueling station, tapping geothermal or magnetic energy flows. More radical theories propose that Antarctica is not just a base, but a gateway, a portal linking Earth to other realms or dimensions. The cultural impact of these rumors cannot be underestimated. Entire generations have grown up with films and novels depicting Antarctica as the site of alien secrets. From science fiction thrillers to speculative documentaries, the imagery of craft hidden beneath ice has become embedded in collective imagination. This persistence suggests that the idea resonates with something primal. Antarctica is the last great blank space on Earth. Its silence invites projections, fears, and hopes. And among these, the rumor of alien bases thrives. Critics argue that belief in alien bases distracts from genuine science. They insist that strange lights are auroras, that magnetic anomalies come from geology, that missing data is bureaucratic incompetence. And yet, even skeptics struggle to dismiss every account. Too many pilots, too many researchers, too many images suggest something more. While not all evidence points to extraterrestrial technology, the sheer accumulation of anomalies forces the question, what exactly lies beneath the ice? Looking to the future, the question of alien bases beneath Antarctica becomes even more pressing. As climate change melts the ice at unprecedented rates, hidden landscapes are revealed. Valleys, mountains, and even ancient shorelines emerge. If artificial structures exist, they may soon surface. The world could face undeniable evidence, not through rumor, but through direct observation. At that moment, governments will no longer control the narrative. Humanity will confront the truth head-on, whether it is ready or not. If the existence of alien bases beneath Antarctica were proven, the consequences would ripple through every layer of human society. Science would be forced to admit that humanity is not the sole intelligence to shape this planet. Religions would grapple with the presence of beings that predate their scriptures. Economies would be shaken by technologies capable of reshaping energy, travel, and warfare. Politics would fracture as nations fought to control or conceal the discoveries. Humanity itself would stand on the threshold of transformation, compelled to see itself not as the center of the universe, but as one among many. In this way, the rumor is not just about Antarctica. It is about us. It reveals our deep suspicion that we are not in control of our world, that powers greater than governments move in silence, that the universe does not revolve around humanity's fragile certainties. Whether true or not, the rumor of alien bases beneath the ice reflects our need to believe in hidden chapters, our hope that the story of Earth is bigger, stranger, and more wondrous than we dare to imagine. Perhaps, one day, the ice will relent and the truth will rise into daylight. Until then, the silence endures, the anomalies accumulate, and the rumor persists, stronger with every generation. Antarctica holds its mysteries close, and none is more haunting than the possibility that beneath its frozen heart lies not only the past of humanity, but the presence of others who have been here all along. Beneath the crushing weight of Antarctica's ice lies one of the most extraordinary and least understood mysteries on Earth. Subglacial lakes, bodies of water sealed away in darkness for millions of years. These hidden worlds, trapped under 2 miles of ice, remain liquid despite the extreme cold, warmed by heat rising from Earth's crust. Scientists have discovered more than 400 such lakes, ranging in size from small pools to vast inland seas. Each one is a time capsule, sealed away before human civilization began, preserving conditions untouched by the surface world. The most famous of these is Lake Vostok, buried under more than 2 miles of ice, stretching 250 kilometers long and nearly 50 kilometers wide. Larger than Lake Ontario, it has been isolated for at least 15 million years. When Russian scientists began drilling toward it in the late 20th century, the world watched with fascination. What life might exist there, untouched by the surface world for epochs? What secrets might its waters reveal? The possibilities were staggering. When drilling finally reached the lake, the response was strangely muted. Officials announced that samples had been taken, yet little information emerged. Rumors began to swirl. Some claimed that the team had discovered microbial life unlike anything on the surface, organisms with DNA sequences unknown to science. Others whispered of something far stranger, traces of structures, or signs of large organisms moving beneath the water. The scientists involved said little, and soon the project faded from public view. For such a monumental achievement, the silence was deafening. This silence echoes across other discoveries. Lakes Mercer and Whillans, smaller but equally isolated, were penetrated in the 21st century. Teams reported microbial communities thriving in complete darkness, feeding on minerals and chemical energy rather than sunlight. These life forms proved that sealed ecosystems could survive under the ice, challenging assumptions about where life can exist. But again, reports were fragmentary, filtered, and incomplete. It seemed that the more was discovered, the less was shared. Why is there such caution around these lakes? Some argue it is simply scientific rigor, the need to verify extraordinary claims. But others see a pattern: discoveries muted, findings restricted, anomalies left unexplored. Could it be that what lies in these lakes is too disruptive to reveal? If microbes exist that are utterly alien to surface life, the implications for biology and for astrobiology are immense. It would suggest that life does not need sunlight or surface conditions, that it can arise in isolation, in darkness, and endure for millions of years. The implications extend beyond Earth. If life thrives in subglacial lakes, it strengthens the case for life on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus, where oceans lie beneath thick crusts of ice. Antarctica becomes a mirror, a laboratory not just for Earth's past, but for alien futures. Perhaps what we find beneath the ice here will be the closest we come to encountering extraterrestrial life without leaving our planet. The thought is thrilling, but also terrifying. For if life has endured in isolation for millions of years, what form has it taken? And what might happen if it is released into our world? Some theories take the speculation further. They suggest that beneath lakes like Vostok lie not only microbes, but relics of ancient civilizations. Radar scans have revealed geometric patterns in the surrounding ice, formations that seem too regular to be natural. Could structures have been preserved beneath the frozen lid? Entire cities entombed in darkness? Such claims remain unproven, yet they persist, fueled by the secrecy surrounding official reports. If ruins do exist, the lakes would have protected them perfectly, locking away evidence of forgotten ages. Even within mainstream science, the lakes raise questions. How do such large bodies of water remain stable for millions of years without freezing solid? How do ecosystems survive without sunlight? What energy sources sustain them? The answers challenge our understanding of biology and geology alike. Chemical reactions between rock and water may provide energy, but could there be more? Some speculate about geothermal vents, others about interactions with deeper forces we do not yet comprehend. Lake Vostok alone could hold volumes of mystery. Scientists admit that drilling into it carried enormous risks. Not only could contamination destroy pristine ecosystems, but there was fear of unleashing organisms the surface world has not seen for millions of years. Reports hinted that early samples contained microbes with DNA sequences unlike anything else known. Some of these sequences reportedly resisted classification, raising questions about whether they evolved independently or arrived from somewhere else entirely. Stories circulated of strange readings deep below the ice, sonar echoes suggesting large objects suspended in water. While dismissed as equipment error, whispers claimed that researchers had detected something metallic, perhaps even structured. Such claims were never verified, yet the fact that discussion of them was swiftly shut down has only deepened suspicion. In the world of Antarctica, silence often speaks louder than words. Lakes Mercer and Whillans offered a glimpse into the possibilities. When scientists sampled them, they found not emptiness, but vibrant microbial colonies. These organisms metabolized iron, sulfur, and other minerals, creating ecosystems without sunlight. Such discoveries proved that life does not require the conditions we once thought essential. Yet even as findings were published, parts of the story remained hidden. What else was found? Were there organisms too unusual, too threatening to announce? Beyond the scientific, the lakes ignite myth. Many cultures speak of hidden waters beneath the earth, of underworld rivers where strange beings dwell. From the Greek Styx to the Hindu subterranean realms of Patala, water beneath the surface has always carried mystical weight. Perhaps subglacial lakes are the real-world echo of those ancient visions. If explorers long ago glimpsed entrances to hidden waters, their stories may have transformed into myth. Now, modern science circles back, finding truth where once there was only legend. Some believe that the lakes may preserve traces of a lost age of humanity. If Antarctica was once ice-free, as ancient maps suggest, civilizations could have settled there. As ice advanced, their cities may have been swallowed, sealed, and preserved beneath glaciers. The lakes, warmed and protected, would be natural vaults, keeping their remains intact. Imagine structures, temples, or archives waiting in darkness. Their discovery held back by ice, but preserved by water. Such a revelation would reshape history itself, forcing us to rewrite humanity's story from the beginning. Conspiracy theories thrive in this uncertainty. They argue that governments already know more than they admit. The Antarctic Treaty is seen not just as an environmental agreement, but as a means of controlling access to the most sensitive discoveries. When expeditions drill into lakes, the results vanish into classified channels. The public hears of microbes, but insiders whisper of larger secrets. Perhaps the lakes have already yielded evidence of non-human intelligence, and it has been suppressed to preserve order. The implications for astrobiology cannot be overstated. If life can exist in Antarctic lakes, it almost certainly can exist elsewhere in the solar system. Europa, Enceladus, and even Mars hold ice-covered oceans and subsurface reservoirs. Antarctica becomes the test case, the closest model we have. If alien microbes exist on distant moons, their cousins may already be thriving beneath Earth's own poles. Studying them could give us a preview of extraterrestrial biology, or even reveal that life on Earth did not originate here, but arrived from beyond. The danger, however, lies in what we do not know. Subglacial microbes may not play by the same rules as surface organisms. They could possess biochemistry incompatible with ours, immune to our defenses. If unleashed, they could thrive unchecked, altering ecosystems or posing risks to humanity. Scientists approach the lakes with caution, but the pressure to unlock their secrets grows. Curiosity battles prudence, and the outcome may shape our future. As climate change accelerates, the timeline tightens. Ice retreats, glaciers collapse, and subglacial waters move closer to exposure. Some lakes may breach naturally, spilling ancient contents into the ocean. The consequences are unpredictable. Harmless microbes might vanish unnoticed. But what if more dangerous organisms are released? Pathogens adapted to conditions alien to our biosphere? The idea may sound like science fiction, but it is a scenario scientists take seriously. The lakes are Pandora's boxes, and once opened, they cannot be closed. The philosophical impact of these lakes is profound. They remind us that our planet is not fully known, that beneath the surface lie worlds as alien as any exoplanet. They force us to confront humility, to admit that we live atop mysteries we cannot yet control. They echo humanity's eternal suspicion that hidden realms exist just out of sight, waiting to be uncovered. Whether the lakes conceal microbes, monsters, or monuments, they are more than scientific curiosities. They are mirrors, showing us that what we call reality is only a surface. Ultimately, subglacial lakes remind us that Earth still holds secrets vast and profound. They prove that life is resilient, that ecosystems can endure in the harshest conditions, hidden from sight for millions of years. They also remind us of the limits of our knowledge and of the possibility that beneath the ice lies more than science can yet explain. Whether they conceal alien microbes, ancient ruins, or entire networks of hidden oceans, they are symbols of the mysteries that still shape our world. Until the ice yields its secrets, the lakes will remain sealed, tantalizing in their silence, daring us to wonder what waits in the darkness below. Among the strangest and most enduring rumors about Antarctica are the testimonies of pilots who claim to have seen enormous openings in the ice, vast circular gaps in glaciers that appear like entrances to a hidden world. These accounts, whispered since the mid-20th century, fuel speculation that Antarctica conceals not just subglacial lakes or ancient ruins, but literal gateways, doors into caverns beneath the continent, openings large enough for aircraft to pass through. For decades, such testimonies have hovered between rumor and secrecy, fragments of stories that hint at a reality far stranger than official records admit. The most famous testimony comes from the controversial accounts attributed to Admiral Richard Byrd, commander of Operation High Jump in 1946. Though official records speak of accidents, storms, and logistical challenges, fringe narratives claim that Byrd described flying into regions where the ice gave way to lush valleys, warmed from below, and encountering vast openings that seemed unnatural. Some versions of the story suggest he spoke of craft rising from these caverns, machines with capabilities far beyond those of the mid-20th century. Whether myth or misinterpretation, the Byrd testimony planted a seed that has grown ever since, the belief that entrances to another world exist beneath the Antarctic ice. Other pilots, both military and civilian, have added their voices. Reports from the 1950s and 60s describe circular depressions in the snowfields, as though something beneath had melted a perfect circle through the ice. From the air, These formations looked less like natural holes and more like shafts, leading into darkness. Some pilots said they saw black voids yawning in the whiteness, so large that their planes could have flown into them. Most of these testimonies were never officially recorded, but whispered among crews, repeated in bars, and carried into conspiracy lore. In more recent decades, satellite imagery has sparked new waves of speculation. High-resolution photographs occasionally appear online, showing what seem to be circular entrances in Antarctic cliffs, some measuring hundreds of feet across. Within days, such images often vanish, replaced with blurred versions, or removed entirely from public archives. Researchers and enthusiasts who track these anomalies insist they are proof of entrances, gateways that governments rush to conceal. Critics argue that they are shadows, artifacts of ice erosion, or tricks of light. Yet the disappearance of the images raises more suspicion than their appearance ever could. Skeptics explain the sightings as natural features: ice caves formed by geothermal heat, crevasses shaped by wind erosion, or shadows misinterpreted by the human eye. Antarctica's landscape is harsh and deceptive, they say, and what looks like a perfect circle from above may be nothing more than collapsed ice shelves or rock outcroppings. Yet, the precision described by pilots, smooth edges, geometric shapes, symmetrical voids, pushes against these explanations. Nature rarely produces circles so exact, so vast, so out of place in a land of chaos and jagged formations. Accounts also tell of strange experiences near these openings. Some pilots reported that their instruments malfunctioned when flying over certain regions. Compasses spun erratically, radios crackled with interference, and altimeters gave false readings. To those who believe, this is evidence of powerful energy fields emanating from beneath the ice, perhaps the byproduct of ancient technology or unknown forces guarding the entrances. To skeptics, the magnetic disturbances of the poles provide an answer, yet even they admit that the intensity and precision of the malfunctions remain unusual. Consider the Cold War years, when Antarctica became a theater not just of science, but of silent competition. Reconnaissance flights over the ice reported strange formations, some described as gaping holes in mountainsides, their edges unnaturally smooth. In a few accounts, pilots allegedly photographed these sites, only for the images to vanish into classified archives. The story repeats itself. Testimony emerges, evidence disappears, and silence replaces inquiry. Civilian pilots too have claimed odd sightings. Some ferrying supplies to research stations reported glimpsing massive dark shapes in the ice, openings that did not match any map. A handful described valleys that seemed too warm, their ice oddly absent, as though hidden vents or energy fields created habitable zones. In some cases, the pilots swore that objects, metallic and gleaming, could be seen near the mouths of these voids. Such accounts are easy to dismiss as exaggeration, yet their persistence across decades makes them difficult to ignore. Satellite evidence remains the most tantalizing and controversial. Images circulated in the early 2000s showed what appeared to be two massive circular openings in a mountainside, each nearly 100 meters wide. The photographs spread quickly online before being removed or degraded in quality. Analysts debated whether they were simply shadows or digital artifacts. Yet the clarity of the original images continues to haunt discussions. If real, these openings could not easily be explained as natural features. Some suggest that the openings are entrances to subterranean rivers, pathways carved by geothermal heat that melt tunnels through the ice. Such natural explanations carry weight, but they do not account for the secrecy, the vanishing images, or the reluctance of officials to allow further study. Why should simple ice caves require classification? Why should pilots be warned away from regions that, on paper, hold nothing of interest? Whistleblowers have spoken of being silenced. A handful of retired military personnel have claimed that during their service they were warned explicitly never to fly near certain coordinates. Some admitted that maps used for navigation contained large blank zones, areas marked as off-limits with no explanation. In some cases, those who broke these restrictions reportedly faced disciplinary action, even though no official reason was ever given. Silence, once again, was the command. Others link the phenomenon to extraterrestrial theories. If alien craft have indeed visited Earth, Antarctica's isolation makes it the ideal location for concealed bases. The openings in the ice would then be hangars, entrances large enough to allow movement of advanced vehicles. Some even claim that fleets of disc-shaped craft have been seen entering or leaving such formations, their presence recorded in brief glimpses before vanishing into the white expanse. These claims, though unverified, align uncannily with the original rumors of Admiral Byrd's reports, suggesting a continuity of testimony stretching across decades. The Nazi connection fuels speculation further. Stories of German expeditions in the 1930s and 40s tell of discoveries of caverns and warm valleys beneath the ice. Some accounts insist that the Nazis established hidden bases there, perhaps with advanced technology, perhaps with assistance from unknown allies. If so, the openings seen by later pilots might be remnants of these installations, entrances maintained or expanded long after the war. Operation High Jump's abrupt end adds fuel, suggesting that what Byrd encountered was not weather, but opposition. Skeptics argue, of course, that such claims are fantasies born from coincidence, shadows, and imagination. Antarctica is harsh and deceptive. Winds carve smooth holes in ice cliffs. Shadows fall in circles. Geothermal heat creates caves. Instruments malfunction near the magnetic poles. To skeptics, every testimony is explained by natural processes or human error. And yet, believers counter with one simple point. Why then does so much evidence vanish? Why are so many accounts silenced? If these are truly mistakes, why erase them so completely? Looking ahead, the implications are profound. If openings in the ice truly exist, leading to vast caverns, they could conceal ecosystems unknown to science, ruins of ancient civilizations, or technologies far beyond ours. They could be the source of the secrecy that enshrouds Antarctica, the reason for missing research teams, the explanation for strange anomalies detected by satellites. If revealed, they would rewrite not just the story of Antarctica, but of humanity itself. Throughout history, myths of great openings to hidden realms have appeared in cultures across the world. The Greeks spoke of caves leading into Hades. The Mayans told of Xibalba. The underworld entered through sacred wells. In Siberia, legend spoke of fiery pits where beings emerged from beneath the earth. These stories echo with eerie similarity to the testimonies of pilots who claim to have seen dark circular mouths in Antarctica's ice. Could it be that such myths were rooted in real encounters, glimpses of entrances now entombed in ice? Scientific missions to Antarctica in the coming decades may one day confirm or deny these testimonies. Drones and autonomous vehicles are being developed to probe the most inaccessible regions, capable of mapping caves and caverns with precision. Yet, access remains tightly controlled, permits scarce, and certain coordinates curiously restricted. If nothing lies beneath the ice, why the barriers? If it is simply geology, why not let the world see? The secrecy itself gives strength to the testimonies. The risks of entering such openings are enormous. The environment could collapse without warning, swallowing machines and lives. Strange microbes, isolated for millions of years, could emerge. Or, if the more radical theories are true, explorers might stumble upon structures or technologies humanity is unprepared to face. Governments, aware of these risks, may prefer silence to revelation, denial to discovery. If someday one of these openings is revealed undeniably, the consequences will ripple across science, religion, and society. A natural cavern would be astonishing enough, expanding our knowledge of geology and ecosystems. But if something artificial were found, structures, machines, or evidence of non-human intelligence, the shock would be immeasurable. Humanity's place in the world would shift overnight, and the line between myth and reality would blur forever. Until then, the testimonies remain fragments of a larger puzzle. They come from pilots trained to recognize landscapes, men and women whose eyes have seen more than most, yet whose words vanish into silence. Their accounts, combined with vanishing satellite images and whispered warnings, paint a picture too strange to ignore. Perhaps they saw shadows, perhaps illusions, or perhaps they saw the truth. Black entrances into the unknown, carved into the most forbidden land on Earth. And so, we are left with mystery. Pilots speak, skeptics dismiss, governments remain silent, and the ice endures. But somewhere, in the endless whiteness, dark mouths may still gape, leading into realms that humanity was never meant to enter. Antarctica guards its secrets well, and none are more haunting than the testimonies of those who swear they saw the openings. For as long as humans have told stories, we have searched for our beginnings. Archaeologists place humanity's cradle in Africa, pointing to fossils, bones, and tools that trace our species back millions of years. Yet, beneath the surface of accepted history, another possibility lingers. Whispered in myths, hinted in ancient maps, and suggested by anomalies buried under ice. Could it be that Antarctica, the frozen continent at the end of the world, was once humanity's true lost cradle? The possibility rests on one undeniable truth. Antarctica was not always covered in ice. Millions of years ago, it was a fertile land of forests, rivers, and life. Fossilized plants and animals prove this beyond doubt. At times in its past, Antarctica supported ecosystems teeming with diversity, even creatures akin to the dinosaurs. Geological evidence shows that much of the continent was warm, its climate more like modern Europe than a frozen desert. If civilizations rose in antiquity, as some believe, Antarctica would have offered fertile ground for humanity's ancestors. Ancient maps add fuel to the fire. The Piri Reis map of 1513, created from older sources, appears to show Antarctica free of ice. Its coastline depicted with accuracy that should have been impossible for its time. Other maps, like the Oronteus Phineas chart of the 16th century, also display a southern continent shaped much like Antarctica, with rivers flowing inland and coastlines unglaciated. Where did such knowledge come from? If explorers had never reached Antarctica until centuries later, who charted those coastlines? Some argue they are proof of ancient seafaring civilizations, mapping Antarctica long before modern history acknowledges its discovery. Myths across cultures speak of lands of eternal light, paradises at the poles, and civilizations that fell beneath ice and ocean. The Greek Hyperborea, the Norse Ultima Thule, the lost Atlantis described by Plato, each points to a realm beyond ordinary reach, a homeland destroyed or hidden. Could these stories be distorted memories of Antarctica, a continent once green, later swallowed by ice? If so, the myths of Paradise Lost may be more than allegories. They may be fragments of human memory surviving across millennia. Archaeological anomalies deepen the mystery. Throughout the world, ancient megaliths defy explanation, from the pyramids of Egypt to the stone cities of South America. Some argue that these are the echoes of a mother civilization, a culture that spread knowledge across the globe before vanishing. If Antarctica was that cradle, then the monuments we see today are not the first, but the last, the scattered remnants of a knowledge that once radiated from the far south. The ice entombed its heart, but the fragments remain in stone, scattered across the continents. Proponents of this theory suggest that as the ice advanced, survivors fled north, carrying fragments of knowledge, seeding early cultures with myths of gods who came from beyond, bringing tools and wisdom. This could explain the sudden leaps in agriculture, astronomy, and architecture in otherwise isolated regions. The memory of Antarctica, encoded in myth, would become the origin stories of countless peoples. To the Egyptians, their gods came from a land before the Nile. To the Sumerians, wisdom was given by beings from the deep. To the Mayans, culture was a gift from feathered serpents across the sea. All may trace back to a common source, buried beneath Antarctic ice. Skeptics argue fiercely. They point to the fossil record, the genetic evidence linking humanity to Africa, the lack of direct archaeological finds beneath the Antarctic ice. For them, the cradle is already known, and Antarctica is a frozen distraction. Yet even they admit that we have barely scratched the surface of the continent. Beneath kilometers of ice may lie valleys untouched for millions of years, landscapes where evidence could survive in pristine condition. The argument against Antarctica is not certainty, but absence, and absence can change with a single discovery. The secrecy surrounding research intensifies suspicion. Expeditions that claim unusual findings often fall silent. Satellite images vanish. Restricted zones remain unexplained. Why should a continent deemed barren require such control? Could it be that discoveries hinting at human origins have already been made, but locked away? If evidence of advanced civilization lay beneath the ice, it would overturn every foundation of history. Such a revelation would be destabilizing beyond measure. Governments, perhaps fearing chaos, might prefer suppression to disclosure. Atlantis is often drawn into this speculation. Plato's account describes a mighty civilization that fell beneath the waves 9,000 years before his time. Scholars debate whether it was allegory, history, or invention. Yet the parallels with Antarctica are striking. A powerful land suddenly destroyed by climate catastrophe, vanishing into ocean and myth. Could Atlantis and Antarctica be one and the same? Some argue that as the ice surged, it swallowed cities, leaving only legends of a sunken world. Hyperborea, too, is linked, not as a sunken realm, but as a paradise at the edges of the world, where the sun never set. Ancient poets described it as real, a place of eternal life and wisdom. Its echoes appear in Norse Thule, Celtic otherworlds, and even in Buddhist Shambhala. Perhaps all of these myths are distorted memories of Antarctica before its fall, remembered not as ice, but as light, not as death, but as origin. Scientific evidence offers intriguing support. Fossilized forests discovered beneath the ice reveal trees that once grew tall, forming jungles where now only glaciers exist. Animal remains suggest ecosystems thriving in temperate climates, their fossils preserved like postcards from a lost paradise. If such life could flourish there, why not human ancestors? The ice is a blanket, but also a vault, preserving what it covers. What if advanced humans or proto-humans lived there? Could Antarctica have nurtured a civilization lost to the ice? Skeptics argue that no tools or structures have been found, but how could they be buried beneath kilometers of ice? Only in recent years has technology allowed radar to glimpse beneath the surface, revealing mountains, valleys, and lakes untouched for millions of years. The possibility remains open, unproven but tantalizing. The consequences of confirming Antarctica as humanity's cradle would be immeasurable. History books would be rewritten. Evolutionary theory would expand, not fall, but adapt, recognizing that our species' journey may have been far more complex than a single point of origin. The narrative of Africa as cradle would not be erased, but joined by another truth, that humanity's roots may be multiple, spreading across continents, Antarctica among them. Religion would tremble before such a revelation. If our origins lay in Antarctica, predating traditional histories, then sacred narratives would require reinterpretation. The story of Eden, long placed in Mesopotamia, might shift to the far south, recast as a memory of paradise before ice. Flood myths would gain new resonance, not as allegories of rivers, but as echoes of a continent drowning under snow. Prophecies of hidden lands, from Revelation's abyss to Buddhist hidden kingdoms, would suddenly gleam with unexpected validation. For politics, the discovery would spark conflict. Who would control the cradle of humanity? If ruins or fossils of advanced humans lay beneath the ice, every nation would claim a right. Treaties would strain, militaries would move, secrecy would tighten. The very question of ownership of the past would ignite wars of ideology and possession. The Antarctic Treaty, already fragile, could not contain the gravity of such a revelation. For science, the impact would be revolutionary. Human evolution would be reconsidered, not as a linear progression from one region, but as a complex web of migrations, survivals, and extinctions. The sudden leaps of knowledge in ancient cultures would gain context, linked to survivors of Antarctica's collapse. The puzzle pieces would fit, though the picture would challenge every assumption. Even the arts would feel the tremor. Literature, cinema, and philosophy would seize upon Antarctica as the true motherland, weaving new myths for a new age. Humanity's imagination would be transformed, expanding beyond Africa, beyond the Fertile Crescent, into the frozen South. The continent would no longer be the edge of maps, but the center of story. Looking further, some speculate that if Antarctica was humanity's cradle once, it may become so again. As climate change reshapes Earth, perhaps the continent will thaw, revealing its valleys, rivers, and hidden plains. The land could become habitable once more, a frontier for settlement, perhaps even a rebirth for humanity. If the cycle repeats, the cradle of the past may become the cradle of the future. The cyclical view of history supports this. Civilizations rise, flourish, and fall, only for others to rise in their place. Perhaps Antarctica's story is not unique, but the archetype. Once it was green, then it froze, now it may thaw again. Humanity's cradle may be rediscovered in time for it to become humanity's cradle once more, not of origin, but of rebirth. Symbolically, Antarctica embodies the paradox of beginnings hidden in endings. It is a land of death, yet it may have given life. It is frozen silence, yet it may be the echo of humanity's first words. It is the edge of the world, yet perhaps it is the center of our story. Imagine the first discovery, an ancient ruin revealed by melting ice, its stones worked with precision, its halls preserved by cold. Imagine scientists uncovering skeletons unlike any known humans, their features suggesting a forgotten branch of our lineage. The world would reel. Museums would shatter their timelines. Textbooks would be rewritten overnight. Children would learn not only of Africa, but of Antarctica as home. Humanity's map of itself would shift forever. What would such a discovery do to us? It may fracture us, as nations fight for control of the past. It may unite us, as humanity realizes its shared origin. It may humble us, reminding us that our story is far older, stranger, and more fragile than we believed. It may also bring humility, for if civilizations thrived and fell long before us, we are not the pinnacle, but participants in a cycle. Our skyscrapers, our machines, our satellites may be as fleeting as the stone halls beneath the ice. Time buries all. Antarctica, as cradle and tomb, would remind us of that truth. And so, the question remains, could it be humanity's true lost cradle? We cannot yet answer. But the evidence, geological, mythological, and circumstantial, suggests the possibility is not empty. It lingers at the edges of history, waiting for ice to melt, for valleys to open, for ruins to speak. Until the ice yields, the cradle question lingers at the edge of imagination. It is a mirror held up to humanity, asking whether our story is complete or whether it has only just begun. Antarctica may yet speak, not with words, but with ruins, with fossils, with whispers rising from beneath the glaciers. And when it does, humanity will finally face the truth of its own origins, and perhaps discover that the home we have been searching for has always been waiting, frozen at the bottom of the world. Antarctica is the only continent on Earth without permanent cities, without nations carving it into states, and without wars fought on its soil. On the surface, it appears to be a place of peace, reserved for science and exploration. Yet beneath that image lies one of the greatest mysteries of our age. Why do the world's most powerful nations still guard Antarctica with such unusual intensity? What secret lies beneath the ice that unites rival governments, militaries, and corporations in an alliance of silence? The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959, is often cited as the reason. It prohibits military activity, guarantees freedom of scientific investigation, and bans nuclear explosions or disposal of radioactive waste. On paper, it is a triumph of cooperation. But look closer, and questions emerge. Why would nations that clash on almost every other frontier agree so quickly and firmly on this one? Why does the treaty endure, renewed without fail, even as new powers rise? Some argue it is because Antarctica is too barren to fight for. Others suspect it is because the stakes are greater than the public realizes. Officially, the world is told that Antarctica is guarded to protect its fragile environment. Its ecosystems are unique, its ice crucial to global climate stability, its resources too dangerous to exploit. But the same logic could be applied to the Amazon rainforest, to the Arctic, to countless other environments, and yet they remain scarred by extraction and conflict. Why then is Antarctica so different? Why does its protection demand a level of secrecy and enforcement unlike anywhere else? There are also whispers of deeper reasons. Some claim that Antarctica conceals ruins of ancient civilizations, structures preserved in ice, knowledge too disruptive to release. If governments discovered proof of a lost cradle of humanity or evidence of non-human intelligence, the consequences would be staggering. Religion, politics, science, and economics would be overturned overnight. Religion, politics, science, and economics would be overturned overnight. Such discoveries could not be allowed to emerge without control, and so secrecy becomes survival. By guarding Antarctica, global powers guard not just territory, but reality itself. The Cold War intensified these suspicions. Though the treaty declared the continent demilitarized, both the United States and the Soviet Union established bases, conducted flights, and carried out classified missions. Declassified documents revealed that surveillance, radar mapping, and strategic drills continued in the name of science, but with military involvement. Some believe the treaty was never about peace, but about partitioning control, ensuring no one nation could claim Antarctica outright while keeping whatever was found beneath the ice concealed. satellite anomalies have fueled further speculation. Images showing geometric shapes, circular openings, and unusual heat signatures have appeared briefly online before being removed. Observers argue that these deletions are evidence of censorship, signs that certain regions are being hidden deliberately. The most notorious cases involve supposed entrances in cliff faces or vast structures beneath the ice, each quickly dismissed as shadows or distortions. Yet their disappearance suggests otherwise. Why censor shadows? Why erase distortions? The presence of restricted zones raises still more questions. Researchers speak of regions they are not allowed to enter, coordinates blocked from flight paths, valleys marked off limits without explanation. Such restrictions make little sense in a land supposedly devoted to science and peace. If the ice holds only geology, why deny access? If nothing is hidden, why silence inquiry? The secrecy itself becomes suspicious, suggesting that Antarctica is not only a frontier of discovery, but a vault of withheld truths. Another explanation lies in the abundance of resources. Antarctica is believed to contain immense reserves of oil, gas, coal, and minerals, including rare earth elements critical to modern technology. Its fisheries are rich. Its fresh water locked in glaciers is the largest reserve on Earth. Control of such resources could decide the fate of economies. By guarding Antarctica, global powers may be securing future wealth, waiting for the day when treaties collapse and extraction begins. The ice, then, is not just protection, but investment. Yet, if resources were the only explanation, one would expect more visible competition, covert drilling, or territorial disputes. Instead, we see silence and unity, rivals cooperating with unusual restraint. This unity hints at something more profound, something that transcends ordinary geopolitics. Perhaps the resources are secondary, and what truly lies beneath is knowledge. Knowledge that cannot be allowed to escape uncontrolled. During the Cold War, Antarctica became a stage for shadow games between the superpowers. Intelligence reports mention flights diverted under secrecy, naval patrols scanning southern waters, and bases staffed with soldiers posing as scientists. Rumors circulated that both sides had encountered anomalies, radar echoes of vast underground voids, strange signals interfering with communications, and lights in the skies above the polar plateau. Official accounts dismissed these as atmospheric phenomena, yet insiders whispered otherwise. The rivalry of the age played out on every frontier, and Antarctica was no exception. In the 21st century, Antarctica remains tightly controlled. Permits to visit are scarce and expensive, limited to small numbers of tourists carefully guided along predetermined routes. Independent exploration is virtually impossible without government approval. Private expeditions attempting to push deeper are quickly confronted, warned, or turned back. Some explorers report being shadowed by aircraft or monitored by satellite, a reminder that Antarctica is far from abandoned. Someone is watching, always. Scientific data, too, is carefully filtered. Satellites operated by agencies release maps of Antarctica, but large portions remain blurred or omitted. Researchers studying anomalies sometimes find their work delayed or denied publication. Radar scans revealing vast subglacial mountains and lakes often raise more questions than answers. Yet, follow-up studies vanish into silence. The world is told that these are technical issues, funding limitations, or priorities shifting. But skeptics argue that the real reason is control. Knowledge is power, and knowledge of Antarctica is guarded more fiercely than gold. Resource speculation continues to fuel debate. Antarctica holds nearly 70% of the world's fresh water, locked in ice. Its mineral wealth is estimated to be vast, with rare earths essential for electronics and renewable energy. In an age where nations compete for dwindling resources, the fact that Antarctica remains untouched is extraordinary. Some argue that the treaty functions not as protection, but as a pause, a temporary measure until technology or necessity forces change. When that day comes, the ice may open not only to mining, but to war. But beyond resources lies the darker suspicion that something has already been discovered beneath the ice. Stories circulate of research teams encountering ruins, strange artifacts, or even evidence of advanced machinery. Whistleblowers hint at discoveries classified instantly, samples seized, reports buried. Could it be that the continent is not merely rich in minerals, but in knowledge, knowledge that could disrupt our understanding of history, biology, and even physics itself. If so, then guarding Antarctica is not optional. It is imperative. The role of secrecy in shaping Antarctica's image cannot be overstated. Publicly, it is portrayed as a pristine wilderness, a natural reserve devoted to peace. Privately, it is a locked vault where access is tightly rationed and information flows only through filters. When nations that fight over borders, seas, and skies come together in silence, something larger must bind them. Perhaps it is fear. Fear of unleashing truths too great for humanity to bear. Consider the consistency of myths. From Greek tales of Hyperborea to legends of hidden kingdoms in the East, humanity has always imagined lands at the edges of the world, guarded and forbidden. Antarctica now wears that mantle. It is the forbidden land, the cradle of silence, the place everyone guards but no one explains. Myths and politics converge, suggesting that what is hidden there is not fantasy, but reality too dangerous for daylight. The question then is not whether Antarctica is guarded, but why it is guarded so tightly. If it were only resources, wars would already be fought. If it were only science, secrecy would not dominate. If it were only environment, access would not be so restricted. The persistence of control, unity, and silence suggests something else. Something beneath the ice that has already been found, and something global powers will do anything to protect. Imagine the consequences if secrecy broke. If ruins of an advanced civilization emerged, every field of knowledge would collapse into upheaval. Science would confront the fact that human history is incomplete. Religion would face challenges from truths older than scripture. Politics would shatter as nations fought to control or conceal what was found. The Antarctic Treaty would unravel overnight, replaced by conflict, competition, or perhaps an even more desperate alliance to contain the revelations. Even if the reality is less dramatic, the symbolism remains. Antarctica is the one place where human ambition pauses, where rivalries cease, where silence reigns. Whether this silence is born of respect, fear, or secrecy, it is unique. It suggests that beneath the continent lies something greater than we admit, something powerful enough to unite enemies, to restrain greed, to demand reverence. Until the ice reveals its truth, Antarctica will remain a fortress of silence. Global powers will continue to guard it, not only for what it is, but for what it hides. And perhaps one day when the glaciers melt and the valleys open, humanity will finally learn why the most secret place on Earth has been kept beyond its reach for so long.